My name is Mason Mitchell, I'm 28 years old, and I watched my family's carefully crafted legacy collapse at Harvard University. After years of being the invisible son, my parents publicly disowned me in front of 550 people at my sister Rachel's graduation. They erased me from the program, doctored family photos, and even removed me from their will. What they didn't expect was that I had discovered their darkest secret, one that would shatter everything they built. Before I dive into how my entire family crumbled in front of Harvard's elite, let me know where you're watching from and hit that like and subscribe button as this story unfolds. Trust me, you won't believe what comes next. Growing up as a Mitchell meant living under constant pressure. From the outside, we were the perfect American family, wealthy, educated, and seemingly close-knit. My father, Walter Mitchell, built his reputation as a brilliant medical researcher and philanthropist, while my mother, Diane, managed their social standing with military precision. Our home in Boston's prestigious Beacon Hill neighborhood was less a home and more a showcase of their success. From the beginning, there was a clear hierarchy in our family. My sister Rachel, 2 years younger than me, was the golden child. Her achievements were celebrated with lavish parties, while mine were acknowledged with quick nods and immediate questions about what came next. When I was 8 and won my first science competition, my father glanced at the trophy and asked, "Is this the best your school has to offer?" Meanwhile, when Rachel placed third in a spelling bee 3 months later, they took her to New York for a weekend celebration. The pattern continued throughout our childhood. My bedroom walls were covered with academic certificates and awards, but they might as well have been invisible to my parents. During dinner parties, they would parade Rachel around to perform piano pieces for guests while introducing me as our other child, if they bothered to introduce me at all. Mason shows aptitude for mathematics. My 4th grade teacher told my parents during a conference. I remember sitting outside the classroom, hearing my mother's response. "We're hoping he develops interests in more prestigious fields. His sister is already showing promise for medicine." I was 10 years old. By high school, I had accepted my role in the family drama. I excelled academically, graduating as valedictorian. But my parents skipped my speech because Rachel had a dance recital the same day. The recital, apparently, could not be missed. My graduation speech apparently could. "We'll watch the recording," my mother promised. They never did. Despite their pushes toward law or medicine, the only careers they deemed worthy, I pursued engineering at MIT. This decision triggered the first major conflict with my father. "Engineers work for people like us, Mason," he said during a particularly heated argument. "Mitchell's lead. We don't take orders from others." I didn't back down. "I'm going to MIT for engineering. I've already accepted." "Then you accept it without our blessing," my mother interjected, her voice cold. "And without our financial support." That was fine by me. I had secured a full scholarship based on my academic achievements they had never bothered to acknowledge. During college, I minimized my visits home. Holiday gatherings became exercises in endurance. Sitting through hours of praise for Rachel's accomplishments at Harvard while deflecting passive-aggressive questions about my hobby at MIT. "Engineering is quite respectable," my mother would tell her friends with a tight smile. "Mason has always been practical." The way she said practical made it sound like a terminal illness. My relationship with Rachel was complicated. We weren't close, but I never blamed her for our parents' favoritism. She seemed uncomfortable with the attention sometimes, but not uncomfortable enough to ever redirect it my way or acknowledge the imbalance. In my junior year, I developed a breakthrough algorithm for optimizing energy consumption in smart buildings. With 2 classmates, we launched a startup that attracted immediate attention from venture capitalists. By graduation, we had secured $1.2 million in funding. When I called my parents with the news, my father's response was, "That's nice, son. Did you hear Rachel was accepted to Harvard Medical with a special commendation from the dean?" Our company, Ecologic Solutions, grew rapidly. By the time I was 26, we employed 30 people and had clients across 3 continents. A prominent business magazine featured me in their 30 Under 30 issue. I sent a copy to my parents, who never mentioned receiving it. During this time, I met Jessica Armstrong at a tech conference in San Francisco. She was a brilliant environmental lawyer who challenged and supported me in ways I'd never experienced. After 6 months of dating, she visited Boston and met my family. "Your parents are exhausting," she told me afterward. "And the way they ignore your success while worshipping the ground Rachel walks on is bizarre." It was the first time someone had so clearly named the dynamic that had shaped my entire life. "They've always been like that," I said. "I'm used to it." Jessica took my hand. "Just because you're used to something doesn't make it okay, Mason." With Jessica's support, I began to see my family's situation more clearly. Still, I maintained minimal contact with my parents, calling on birthdays and major holidays, occasionally joining family events when I couldn't find a reasonable excuse to avoid them. As Rachel's Harvard Medical School graduation approached, I expected the usual, an afterthought invitation and the expectation that I would sit quietly in the background while the Mitchell family celebrated their true pride and joy. I had no idea that this particular graduation would become the stage for the complete unraveling of the Mitchell family legacy. 3 weeks before Rachel's graduation, I received a text message from my mother instead of the formal invitation I had expected. "Rachel graduates May 18th. We have limited tickets. Let us know if you can attend. Dress appropriately. No congratulations about my company's recent expansion to Europe. No questions about my life. Just a terse notification and dress code reminder." Jessica found me staring at my phone in our San Francisco apartment. "What's wrong?" she asked, looking over my shoulder at the message. "Rachel's graduation is coming up," I said. "Apparently. I might be allowed to attend." Jessica frowned. "That's not how you invite someone to a family celebration." The next day, my mother called. I put her on speaker so Jessica could hear, partly seeking validation that I wasn't overreacting to my family's behavior. "Mason, we've reserved a seat for you at the graduation," my mother began without any greeting. "You'll need to be in Cambridge by Thursday for the family dinner. Your father has invited several important colleagues. Please ensure your appearance is appropriate. That means a haircut and a proper suit, not whatever it is tech people wear these days." "Hello to you too, Mom," I replied. "Yes, I can make it. Jessica will be coming with me." There was a pause. "We didn't account for extra guests, Mason. Tickets are extremely limited. Jessica is my partner, Mom. I'm not coming without her." Another pause. "Fine. I'll see what we can do. But she won't be seated with the family. And please arrive discreetly. This is Rachel's moment." After hanging up, Jessica looked at me in disbelief. "Is she always like that?" "That was actually one of our warmer conversations," I said, attempting humor to mask the hurt. We drove to Cambridge the following Wednesday. I had booked a hotel room, refusing my mother's half-hearted offer to stay at their temporary rental near campus. The evening of our arrival, I received an email with the graduation program attached. "For your reference," my mother's message read. I opened the file and scrolled to the graduate listings, finding Rachel's name with honors notation. Then I turned to the acknowledgments section, where graduates could thank their families. Rachel's read, "With deepest gratitude to my loving parents, Walter and Diane Mitchell, for their unwavering support and guidance throughout my journey." No mention of her brother. I was erased. Maybe she forgot. Jessica suggested, though her tone indicated she didn't believe it. "Let's find out," I replied, texting Rachel to meet for coffee the next morning. Rachel agreed, and we met at a cafe near campus. She seemed nervous, constantly checking her phone. "Congratulations on graduating," I said after we ordered. I saw the program. No room for your brother in the acknowledgments? Rachel flushed. I had a word limit, Mason. And you know how Mom and Dad are about these things. About what things exactly? About appearances. You know. She fidgeted with her napkin. They've been stressed about this graduation for months. Everything has to be perfect. And perfect means pretending I don't exist? That's not fair. She protested weakly. You've been away. You chose your own path. Our conversation was interrupted when Rachel received a text that made her stand abruptly. I have to go. Graduation rehearsal. I'll see you at dinner tonight. As she hurried away, she left her graduation folder on the table. I shouldn't have looked, but something compelled me. Inside was a seating chart for the ceremony with specific instructions. My name was listed in the general attendees section, while Jessica's was penciled in with a question mark. More disturbing was a note in my mother's handwriting. Ensure M stays in designated area. No family photos until after Dean's reception. Was me. I was to be contained, managed, hidden. Later that afternoon, while Jessica was on a work call, I made a decision I never thought I would make. I accessed my father's email account. Years ago, as a teen, I had set up my father's email system and knew he never changed his password, his birth date followed by Mitchell 1, because he was original that way. I had never violated his privacy before. But the growing knot of suspicion in my stomach demanded answers. What I found confirmed my worst fears and then some. An email from my father to my mother dated 3 months earlier. Graduation arrangements. Contained the line, I've spoken with our lawyer. The revised will has been prepared as discussed. Mason will receive the minimum required by law to prevent any contest. Everything else goes to Rachel. We'll finalize after graduation. Another email to the family photographer. For the graduation compilation, please use only the edited photos I've attached. Mason has been removed from these as discussed. And most hurtful, an email to Rachel from last week. Remember what we discussed. This is your moment, and the Mitchell legacy rests with you now. Your brother made his choices. Minimize his presence at all events. I felt physically ill. Jessica found me sitting motionless at my laptop. Mason? What's wrong? She asked. Then gasped as she read over my shoulder. My God! They're systematically erasing you. They're disowning me, I said, my voice hollow. Formally. They've been planning it for months. Jessica knelt beside me. This is beyond dysfunctional, Mason. This is cruel. The question is, what do I do now? I asked. Not attend? Jessica considered this. No. That's exactly what they want. They want you to disappear quietly. The question is, do you let them get away with this? I closed the laptop. Let's go to dinner tonight. I want to see how far they're willing to take this charade. The pre-graduation dinner was held at an upscale restaurant near Harvard Square. My parents had reserved a private room decorated with Harvard crimson and gold. A banner read, "Congratulations, Dr. Rachel Mitchell." Although she wouldn't technically receive her diploma until tomorrow. Jessica and I arrived precisely on time. My mother's eyes widened slightly at Jessica's presence, but quickly recovered her composure. Mason, you're here, she said as if surprised by my adherence to their invitation. We're still waiting for your father's colleague Dr. Brennan and his wife. No hello. No introduction to Jessica. Just a statement of fact and a subtle reminder that important people were coming. My father was holding court near the bar, surrounded by several older men in expensive suits. He nodded in my direction but made no move to greet me. Rachel stood nearby, looking uncomfortable in a designer dress that our mother had undoubtedly selected. Let me introduce you around, I said to Jessica, deliberately moving toward my father's circle. As we approached, my father glanced at his watch. Ah, Mason. Good timing. Gentlemen, my son Mason. He does something with computers in California. Actually, I'm the founder and CEO of Ecologic Solutions. I corrected him. We revolutionize energy efficiency in commercial buildings. And this is Jessica Armstrong, environmental attorney and my partner. I watched my father struggle with the realization that Jessica wasn't just a date but someone with credentials his colleagues might respect. One of the men looked interested. Ecologic? I read about your work in the journal last month. Impressive innovations. Thank you, I replied, noting my father's tightening expression. We just secured a contract with the European Union to implement our systems across their new government buildings. Fascinating, another man said. Walter, you never mentioned your son was in clean energy. That's quite an achievement. My father cleared his throat. Rachel will be joining Boston Memorial's neurosurgery residency program next month. The youngest candidate accepted this year. The abrupt subject change was jarring, but his colleagues politely pivoted to congratulate Rachel, who had appeared at our father's side as if summoned. Dinner proceeded with similar moments of tension. My mother had arranged seating that placed Jessica and me at the far end of the table, away from the important guests. My father gave a lengthy toast celebrating Rachel's achievements, the Mitchell family's contributions to medicine, and their pride in continuing the legacy. To our daughter, who carries forward everything we value, he concluded, raising his glass without a single acknowledgement of my existence. Uncle Harold, my father's younger brother, and the only relative who had ever shown genuine interest in my life, approached our end of the table after dinner. Good to see you, Mason, he said warmly, shaking my hand and actually greeting Jessica by name. I've been following your company's progress. Impressive work. Thanks, Uncle Harold. How's retirement treating you? Harold had retired early from his position as a financial advisor. Can't complain. Though I still keep my hand in managing some family trusts. He lowered his voice. Including yours? Though your parents don't like to be reminded of that. This was news to me. What trust? Harold looked surprised. The Mitchell Family Trust. Your grandfather set it up for all descendants. You're entitled to your portion at 30, regardless of your parents' opinions. He glanced toward my father. We should talk more about this. Not here. Before he could elaborate, my mother appeared to announce that a photographer had arrived for family photos. Rachel, Walter, come along, she called, then added as an afterthought. Mason. We'll do the extended family photos later. Later never came. I watched as they posed for various configurations, Rachel with faculty, Rachel with parents, parents with hospital administrators, while Jessica and I stood awkwardly to the side. This is surreal, Jessica whispered. It's like they're performing in a play about a family with only one child. After the photo shoot, I cornered Rachel near the restrooms. What's going on? Why are you participating in this? Rachel looked genuinely distressed. You don't understand the pressure, Mason. You never have. You got to escape, to build your own life. I'm the one who has to live up to everything they demand. So that requires pretending I don't exist? Tears formed in her eyes. I didn't ask for any of this. The constant spotlight, the expectations. Do you know what it's like being their only hope after you disappointed them? Disappointed them? By becoming successful on my own terms? By abandoning the plan? She snapped, then immediately looked regretful. I'm sorry. That's not fair. It's just, tomorrow is important. Please don't make a scene. Before I could respond, my mother appeared. Rachel, Dean Anderson wants to speak with you. She glanced coldly at me. Mason, the valets are bringing cars around. I believe your hotel was downtown. The dismissal was clear. As Jessica and I left, I texted my college friend Brian, who lived in Boston and worked as a media specialist. Need a favor tomorrow. Can you bring your tablet and projection setup to Rachel's graduation? Sure, he replied. What for? Insurance. I wrote back. That night in our hotel room. A suspicion that had been forming led me to research something specific: my parents' financial dealings with my early business investments. When I first launched Ecologic, I had naively allowed my father to handle some of the initial investment structuring. He had insisted it would save me money on accountants and lawyers. Family takes care of family, he had said. Now I accessed my cloud storage where I kept all financial records and began comparing notes with bank statements. After 3 hours of detailed review, Jessica found me surrounded by digital documents, my face pale. They stole from me, I said in disbelief. My parents diverted $850,000 of my initial business funding into their personal foundation. Money that was meant for my company's development. Jessica, with her legal background, reviewed my findings. This is embezzlement, Mason. It's criminal. It gets worse, I said, showing her additional documents. The charitable donations they're so famous for? Many of them exist only on paper. They'd been claiming tax benefits for contributions that never actually reached the charities. We stayed up until dawn, compiling evidence and preparing for what would come next. By morning, I knew exactly what I needed to do. Harvard Yard was transformed for commencement, with rows of white chairs arranged on the lawn and crimson banners hanging from historic buildings. The late May sunshine cast a golden glow over the scene as families proudly gathered to celebrate their graduates. Jessica, Brian, and I arrived early. Brian carried a small bag with his tablet and portable projection equipment, drawing no attention among the many people with cameras and recording devices. "You sure about this?" Brian asked quietly. "I'm sure they'll give me no choice," I replied. My mother had texted specific instructions. I was to sit in section D. Row 15, far from the family section where they would be seated in the front rows as distinguished guests and donors. Jessica was relegated to the general admission area even further back. "I'll be fine," Jessica assured me, squeezing my hand. "Just remember, whatever happens, you have people who actually care about you." I found my assigned seat, noticing Uncle Harold 2 rows ahead. He turned and gave me a subtle nod before my mother appeared, looking immaculate in a designer suit with a Harvard crimson scarf. "You're here," she said, as if she hadn't specifically instructed me where to sit. "Please remain in this section during the ceremony and reception. Your father's colleagues from the hospital board are attending. And we don't want confusion about seating arrangements." "Confusion about whether I'm your son, you mean?" I asked evenly. Her expression hardened. "This is Rachel's day. Don't make it about your perpetual need for attention." Before I could respond, she swept away to join my father, who was surrounded by people in expensive suits and academic regalia. I watched as he introduced himself repeatedly as Dr. Mitchell, father of today's summa cum laude graduate. Never once, "One of my children is graduating today," or any acknowledgement that he had 2 children. The ceremony began with traditional pomp. University officials in colorful academic robes proceeded across the yard while a band played. The dean gave a welcoming address, followed by a prominent alumnus delivering the commencement speech. When it came time for the medical school graduates, Rachel's name was announced with special honors. I watched my sister walk across the stage, accepting her diploma with the grace she had been groomed to display since childhood. Despite everything, I felt a moment of genuine pride for her accomplishment. Then came an unexpected announcement. "We would like to recognize Dr. Walter Mitchell, whose generous donations have established the Mitchell Center for Neurological Research, and whose daughter continues the Mitchell legacy of medical excellence. Dr. Mitchell, would you like to say a few words?" My father rose to enthusiastic applause, approaching the podium with the confidence of someone who believed he deserved every accolade. "Thank you, Dean Harrison. As a physician and researcher, nothing gives me greater pride than seeing the Mitchell medical tradition continue through my daughter Rachel." He paused for effect. "My only child has exceeded even our highest expectations," proving that dedication to excellence is indeed the greatest family legacy one can provide. I felt as if I had been punched. Around me, people applauded, unaware of the deliberate erasure happening before their eyes. Uncle Harold turned to look at me, his expression troubled. After the ceremony, graduates and families mingled on the lawn. I watched from a distance as my parents posed for more photos with Rachel, surrounded by faculty and hospital board members. Jessica rejoined me, along with Brian, who had set up his equipment discreetly nearby. "You okay?" Jessica asked softly. "No," I answered honestly. "But I will be." I approached my family group, which had grown to include several distinguished-looking guests. My mother saw me coming and whispered something to my father, whose expression darkened. "Congratulations, Rachel," I said, offering my sister a small gift box containing a pair of earrings that had belonged to our grandmother. Rachel looked genuinely touched. "Thank you, Mason." My father stepped between us. "What are you doing here?" he demanded, loud enough for nearby people to hear. "Congratulating my sister on her graduation," I replied calmly. "Who invited you to this section?" "You were instructed to remain in your designated area." People were beginning to stare. My mother laughed nervously. "Walter, not now," she murmured, though her eyes conveyed panic rather than concern. "No, Diane. I'm tired of this." My father's voice grew louder. "You are not part of this celebration. You are not part of this family's achievements." The circle around us widened as people backed away from the unfolding scene. I estimated about 50 people were now watching, with more turning their attention toward us. "Mason made his choice years ago," my father continued, his face flushing with anger. "We only have one child, and she has made us proud in ways you never could." My mother stepped forward, placing her hand on a confused guest's arm. "I'm so sorry about this interruption. Our daughter's day is being disrupted by..." She glanced at me with calculated dismay. "Someone troubled who we've tried to help for years." The public disowning was happening exactly as I had anticipated, but the reality of it, the deliberate cruelty before hundreds of witnesses, still stung. Rachel stood frozen, looking horrified but saying nothing. A security officer approached. "Is there a problem here?" My father straightened his tie. "Yes. This person is disturbing our family celebration. He's not supposed to be in this section." The officer turned to me. "Sir, I'll need you to return to your designated area." 550 people were now watching. Academics, medical professionals, students and their families, all witnessing the Mitchell family drama unfold on what should have been a day of celebration. I had a choice to make. I could walk away as I had done so many times before, or I could finally stand up for the truth. I chose the truth. "Officer, I'm Mason Mitchell," I said clearly. "Dr. Walter Mitchell's son. Though he's currently pretending I don't exist." The security officer looked confused, glancing between my father and me. "He's delusional," my mother interjected smoothly. "We've dealt with these episodes before." That was when I decided to break the cycle once and for all. I spotted a nearby chair and stepped onto it, raising my voice to address the growing crowd. "My name is Mason Mitchell. Until about 2 minutes ago, I was the son of Walter and Diane Mitchell. Apparently, I've just been publicly disowned at my sister's graduation." Murmurs spread through the crowd. My father's face contorted with rage while my mother looked around desperately, as if searching for an emergency exit from this social catastrophe. "Mason, get down immediately," my father hissed. "Why? Are you worried about appearances? Isn't that what the Mitchell family is all about, appearances?" Brian had positioned himself nearby, tablet ready. I nodded to him, and he began recording. "For those who don't know me, I'm an MIT graduate and the founder of Ecologic Solutions, a company I built from scratch after being told I was a disappointment for not following the Mitchell medical dynasty." I paused, making eye contact with various members of the audience. What my parents don't want you to know is that they financed their prestigious donations and lifestyle partially by embezzling $850,000 from my company's initial investment fund. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My father surged forward. That's slander. Security, remove him now. The security officer hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with the escalating situation and unsure whose story to believe. I have the receipts, I continued, gesturing to Brian, who held up his tablet. Financial transfers showing money moved from my business accounts into the Mitchell Family Foundation, then directly into their personal accounts. Brian projected the documents onto a nearby wall, enlarging bank statements and transfer records that clearly showed the paper trail. This is absurd, my father spluttered. Private family matters have no place here. I agree, I responded. Which is why you shouldn't have publicly disowned me in front of hundreds of witnesses. But since we're here, let's talk about the Mitchell Family Foundation and those generous charitable donations you're being honored for today. I nodded to Brian again, who switched the display to another set of documents. Tax filings showing charitable donations that never reached their destinations. The Children's Hospital wing with the Mitchell name? They claimed a $1.2 million donation but actually contributed less than a third of that amount. The rest was creative accounting. My mother had gone deathly pale. My father was practically vibrating with fury. But the most interesting secret, I continued, my voice steady despite my pounding heart, concerns the research that made the Mitchell name famous in the first place. A hush fell over the crowd. I locked eyes with an older man standing near the edge of the gathering, Professor Lambert. My father's former research partner who had mysteriously left academia 20 years ago. The groundbreaking neurological research paper that launched my father's career in 1998? The Mitchell Protocol for Treating Degenerative Brain Disorders? It wasn't his work. It was stolen from his research partner, Professor Thomas Lambert, who is standing right over there. All eyes turned to Professor Lambert, who looked startled at being identified. My father systematically excluded Professor Lambert from credit, removed his name from papers, and used his influence to push him out of academia entirely. I discovered this while researching my family's financial misconduct. I pulled out my phone, displaying emails I had found in my father's account, correspondence from the late 1990s that had never been deleted due to my father's technological ineptitude and arrogance. These emails show my father deliberately undermining Professor Lambert, taking sole credit for their joint research, and threatening to destroy his reputation if he spoke up. Professor Lambert stepped forward, his voice shaking slightly. It's true. I've kept silent for decades because Walter threatened my career and my family. The Mitchell Protocol was our joint research, based primarily on my clinical trials. The crowd's murmuring grew louder. University officials were hurrying toward our group, clearly alarmed by the unfolding scandal at their prestigious graduation ceremony. My father made one last desperate attempt to regain control. This is preposterous. Mason has always been unstable, jealous of his sister's success. These are fabricated claims from a disgruntled son who couldn't meet family expectations. I remained calm. Every document I've shown is verifiable. The financial records have been provided to the appropriate authorities this morning. The research attribution can be verified through original lab notes that Professor Lambert preserved. I stepped down from the chair, addressing my father directly. You didn't just disown me today. You disowned truth, integrity, and genuine accomplishment. The Mitchell legacy isn't medical excellence, it's fraud, theft, and deception. The dean of the medical school had reached our group, his expression grave. Dr. Mitchell, I think we need to continue this discussion privately. There's nothing to discuss. My father blustered. These are malicious lies. Actually, came Uncle Harold's voice as he pushed through the crowd. As trustee of the Mitchell Family Foundation, I can confirm the financial discrepancies. I've had concerns for years but was repeatedly assured everything was proper. The perfect Mitchell family image was crumbling before hundreds of witnesses. My mother, always so composed, was now openly crying, mascara running down her cheeks. My father looked as though he might collapse from rage or fear, perhaps both. And Rachel looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Shock, certainly. Betrayal, perhaps. But also something that might have been relief. The next hour passed in a blur of activity. University officials escorted my parents, Rachel, Professor Lambert, and me to an administrative building away from the main graduation festivities. Jessica and Brian followed, still documenting everything. Uncle Harold joined us, bringing his financial expertise. Inside a wood-paneled conference room, my father tried once more to dismiss my allegations. This is a family disagreement that has gotten out of hand, he told the university officials. My son is upset about personal matters and has chosen to disrupt an important university event. The Harvard legal counsel, who had been hastily summoned, cleared his throat. Dr. Mitchell, these allegations go far beyond family disagreements. Claims of research fraud involving work affiliated with this university must be thoroughly investigated. And financial fraud involving donations to the university, added a woman who had been introduced as the head of development. My father turned to me, his voice low and threatening. You'll regret this. When this is over and these ridiculous claims are disproven, you'll have nothing and no one. I already have nothing from you, I replied calmly. That's the point. Professor Lambert had brought his own documentation, original research notes and correspondence that he had preserved for decades, waiting for a moment he never thought would come. I kept everything, he told the university officials. After being forced out of research, I taught at a small college in Vermont. I never thought there would be a chance to reclaim my work. Outside the conference room, word was spreading quickly. Several of my father's colleagues from the hospital board had gathered in the hallway, looking concerned and confused. One of them, Dr. Winters, approached me when I stepped out to speak with Jessica. Is it true? She asked quietly. About the research? Yes, I replied. Check the original lab notebooks. The breakthrough methodology was Lambert's work. She looked troubled. There are several joint research initiatives currently in development based on Walter's supposed expertise in this area. Then I'd suggest reviewing them carefully. Inside the conference room, Uncle Harold was reviewing the financial documents with university officials, his expression growing increasingly grave. As a trustee, I should have caught this sooner, he admitted. Walter provided doctored reports to the foundation board. The actual financial records show significant discrepancies between reported donations and actual transfers. My mother sat silently, her perfect composure completely shattered. She hadn't spoken since entering the building, seemingly unable to process the public implosion of her carefully constructed life. Rachel finally approached me as university officials conferred in the corner. Why now? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Why today? I didn't choose the timing, I replied. They did, when they decided to publicly disown me. But the real question is, did you know about any of it? She shook her head slowly. I knew they favored me. I knew they were hard on you. But this. She gestured vaguely at the financial documents spread across the table. No. I had no idea. I believed her. Rachel had been as much a pawn in our parents' game as I had been. Just positioned on the opposite side of the board. What happens now? She asked. No, I said. We both get to decide who we want to be outside of their shadow. Security officers arrived to escort my parents from campus. The university was already moving to distance itself from the emerging scandal, with the dean announcing that an investigation would be launched immediately into the research attribution claims and the financial donations. As my parents were led away, my father turned to me one last time. This isn't over, he warned. It is for me, I replied. Once they were gone, the atmosphere in the room shifted. University officials spoke quietly with Rachel, assuring her that her academic achievements were her own and would not be tarnished by her parents' actions. Professor Lambert sat with academic representatives, finally telling his story in full after decades of silence. Uncle Harold pulled me aside. "Your grandfather would be proud of you," he said. "He always saw through Walter's facade. That's why he set up your trust with me as trustee, not your father. Why didn't you tell me about all this sooner?" I asked. He sighed heavily. "Family loyalty, I suppose. A misplaced sense of protection. But watching them erase you today, that crossed a line I couldn't ignore." Jessica joined us, slipping her hand into mine. "What now?" "Now we leave," I said. "This part is over." As we prepared to depart, Rachel approached us again, looking lost in her graduation gown that suddenly seemed too large for her. "Can I come with you?" she asked unexpectedly. I can't go back to them after this." I looked at my sister, really looked at her perhaps for the first time. Not as the favored child or the golden prodigy, but as someone who had been shaped and molded by the same toxic parents who had rejected me. "Yes," I said finally. "You can come with us." Together with Rachel, Jessica, Brian, and Uncle Harold, I walked out of the administrative building into the late afternoon sunshine. The graduation festivities continued in the distance. But for us, something had ended, and something new had begun. The months following what became known in Boston social circles as the Mitchell commencement incident were challenging but transformative. The legal consequences unfolded quickly. Within weeks, investigations were launched into both the financial improprieties and the research fraud allegations. My parents faced multiple charges related to embezzlement, tax fraud, and misappropriation of foundation funds. The evidence was overwhelming, strengthened by Uncle Harold's testimony and the meticulous records I had compiled. The prestigious Mitchell Family Foundation was placed under independent administration pending complete financial review. Professor Lambert received long overdue recognition for his contributions to neurological research. Harvard Medical School formally acknowledged the misattribution, amending their records to list Lambert as primary researcher and developer of what had been called the Mitchell Protocol. 40 years of work, finally recognized. Lambert told me over coffee one afternoon. I'd almost given up hope. The hardest part for me wasn't dealing with the investigations or media attention, but rebuilding relationships that had been distorted by years of manipulation. Rachel moved into Jessica's and my guest house in San Francisco while she reconsidered her future. Our initial conversations were awkward, laden with unspoken resentments and shared trauma. "I don't know who I am anymore," she confessed one evening as we sat on the deck overlooking the bay. "Everything I've done was to please them, to be the perfect Mitchell daughter. Without that, what's left?" "That's something only you can answer," I replied. "But for what it's worth, I think the real Rachel might be pretty amazing if given the chance to exist." She managed a small smile. "When did you get so wise?" "Probably around the time I accepted that I'd never be good enough for them and decided to be good enough for myself instead. Therapy became an essential part of our healing process. Jessica found us a therapist specializing in family trauma, and both Rachel and I committed to weekly sessions, sometimes together, sometimes separately. Your parents created a false competition between you, Dr. Marshall explained during one joint session. Rachel wasn't the enemy. You weren't the failure. You were both children being manipulated to fulfill your parents' narcissistic needs. Slowly, painfully, Rachel and I began building a genuine sibling relationship, perhaps our first. We discovered shared interests and compatible personalities that had been deliberately kept at odds by our parents' manipulations. Uncle Harold became a frequent visitor and mentor to both of us. He helped Rachel establish financial independence from our parents, and advised me on expanding Ecologic's mission. Your grandfather built his fortune ethically, Harold told us. One fair deal at a time. That's the real Mitchell legacy, not whatever sham your parents created. 6 months after the graduation incident, I received an unexpected call from the Harvard Medical School dean. "Mr. Mitchell, we've completed our review of the situation involving your father's research and donations," she began formally. "The university wishes to make amends in a meaningful way. We'd like to establish a scholarship for ethical medical research practices, and we'd appreciate your input." This led to the creation of the Lambert Mitchell Ethics and Research Scholarship, supporting students committed to research integrity and proper attribution. Professor Lambert and I served as founding advisors, turning a painful history into a force for positive change. My relationship with Jessica deepened through the ordeal. She had stood by me at my lowest moment, witnessed the ugly truth of my family dynamic, and still chose to remain. "You know, most people wait until at least the third date to expose their family's criminal enterprise," she joked one night. "You really accelerated the getting to know you phase. Efficient engineering," I replied, making her laugh. As for my parents, the legal consequences were significant. My father lost his medical license and faced criminal charges for financial fraud. My mother avoided jail time through a plea agreement but was barred from serving on charitable boards. Their carefully constructed social standing collapsed completely. They made several attempts to contact me, first with threats, then with demands, finally with what they probably believed were apologies but were actually just thinly veiled manipulations. "They're not actually sorry for what they did," Dr. Marshall explained during a therapy session. "They're sorry they were caught and are facing consequences." I maintained firm boundaries, allowing only limited contact through lawyers. Rachel initially struggled more with the separation, having been so thoroughly enmeshed in their expectations. "They still call me daily," she admitted 3 months after moving out. "Part of me still wants their approval, even knowing everything they did." "That's normal," I assured her. "They conditioned you your entire life to seek their validation. That doesn't disappear overnight." A year after the graduation ceremony, Rachel decided to pivot her medical career. Instead of the prestigious neurosurgery residency our parents had orchestrated, she chose pediatric medicine, her true passion that had been dismissed as not prestigious enough by our father. "I'm actually excited to go to work now," she told me. "I'm helping children because I want to, not because it looks impressive at cocktail parties." Ecologic continued to thrive. The publicity from the Mitchell scandal eventually faded, allowing my company's actual innovations to reclaim the spotlight. We expanded into educational programs, teaching sustainable building practices to the next generation of engineers and architects. 18 months after the confrontation, we held a small, private ceremony for Rachel. Not a replacement graduation, but a celebration of her authentic accomplishments and new beginning. Uncle Harold, Jessica, Brian, Professor Lambert, and a few close friends gathered at our home. "To the real Dr. Mitchell," I toasted, raising my glass to Rachel, "who earned her achievements through her own merit and who has the courage to chart her own course." Rachel smiled, more relaxed and genuine than I had ever seen her. "And to my brother, who had the courage to speak truth even when it would have been easier to stay silent." As for the lessons I learned through this painful journey, they continue to shape my life daily. First, true family isn't determined by blood or legal documents. It's built through honesty, support, and mutual respect. The family I created with Jessica, Rachel, Uncle Harold, and loyal friends provided more love and acceptance than my parents ever had. Second, success without integrity is ultimately empty. My parents achieved wealth, status, and recognition, all built on lies that eventually collapsed. True achievement must be earned honestly. Third, standing up for truth may be painful, but living a lie is ultimately more destructive. The moment I confronted my parents was terrifying, but it liberated not just me, but Rachel, Professor Lambert, and others affected by their deception. Finally, healing is possible even after decades of trauma. Through therapy, honest relationships, and purpose-driven work, Both Rachel and I found ways to process our past without being defined by it. 2 years after that fateful graduation day, Jessica and I were married in a small ceremony overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Rachel was Jessica's maid of honor, while Uncle Harold stood as my best man. "Today marks another new beginning," Uncle Harold said during his toast. "One built on truth, integrity, and genuine love, the foundation of a legacy worth having." As I looked around at the small gathering of people who truly cared for us, I realized that in losing the false family my parents had constructed, I had gained something infinitely more valuable: an authentic life surrounded by genuine connection. The Mitchell name might have been tarnished in Boston social circles, but the values I chose to live by would create a different kind of legacy, one I could genuinely be proud of. Has your family ever expected you to be someone you're not? Have you had to stand up for your authentic self against pressure to conform? Share your experiences in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you. Remember, sometimes the hardest truths lead to the most meaningful growth. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you courage on your own journey to authenticity.